Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Facebook Live Whisky tasting from the Whisky Exchange. My name is Billy Abbott. I'm the Whisky Exchange's ambassador, and I'm joined today by Shilton and Michael from Paul John. And I'll just hand over to Michael so he can explain who he is before we start the tasting. And yes, so anyway, Michael, please tell us who you are and everything about Paul John.
Hi, hi guys. Hope I'm loud and clear. Shilton, can you hear me?
Oh, I can get him up as well. Sorry. There he is. Shilton, are you there, Shilton?
Yep, yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Hi guys. This is Michael, all the way from Goa. I work for John Distilleries as a whiskey maker. Paul John started in 2006. The name comes from the founder of this company. He decided to set his single malt distillery on the western coast of India, where we have a wonderful tropical climate. Decision was made in 2006 and 2008. The entire setup was ready. In 2009, we started our first distillation. Since we have a wonderful tropical climate, which is warm and humid, we had to work towards the environment. So we decided to have easy drinkable, elegant floral whiskey. So we started working towards designing our own copper pot still, and decided to use Indian 6-row grain. For Paul John, we use 100% Indian grains, and this is grown in the foothills of Himalayas and Rajasthan. We use 6-row Indian barley, slightly different than 2-row grain that is used normally for Scotch whiskies. When you talk about grain, Indian grain contains slightly higher amount of protein, and if you compare with the Scottish grain, the Indian grain is much smaller. This makes the husk content slightly higher. When you talk about husk contains higher amount of tannins. This gives additional flavor. The first distillation happened in 2009. Before that, we decided to use ex-bourbon cask rather than using the alternative barrels or casks such as sherry, port wine casks, or virgin oak casks, because we thought American white oak, that too ex-bourbon cask, is more safer because this imparts more elegant flavors. India is hot country. If you use wood like the French oak or virgin oak, your whiskey tend to become more woodier and it becomes undrinkable. We make 2 different types of whiskeys, the peated and unpeated. We don't have peat in India. We import peat all the way from Scotland. We source our peat from 2 different regions in Scotland, some from Ireland and some from Highland. Some of the whiskies I use peat from Ireland. Few expressions I use both the peats. So today we have 6 different expressions, starting from Nirvana.
Cool. So before we run on, Michael, so everybody, so if you are tasting along with us, we're going to start off with the first one in the set, which should be Nirvana. Unfortunately, I'm too far away from my camera to be able to wave this in an effective fashion, but trust me, this is the Paul John Nirvana, which, there you go, Michael, if you want to say hello, because actually I'll show your video to everybody so they can see, here it is. Sorry, too many different buttons, here we go. Anyway, you want to hold that one up and show everybody?
Yep.
There we go. So that's the whiskey you're going to be trying. So if you have that, please have a pour now. And so, Michael, please tell us a little bit about Nirvana.
Okay. Nirvana When it comes to Paul John, we don't have age statement. We have different expressions. Starting from Nirvana to we have a couple of special releases. The difference between these expressions are the age. Nirvana is the entry-level single malt. This is the youngest whiskey that we have in our portfolio. In Nirvana, the youngest whiskey is 4-year-old. This is the only whiskey which is shell filtered, matured in ex-bourbon cask for 4 years. We have 2 different warehouses. One is underground, the other 2 are above the ground level. Most of the elegant whiskeys are from the underground cellar. So Nirvana is mostly taken or drawn from the underground cellar from the second fill casks. The very reason we release Nirvana is, as you know, India is hugely popular for whiskeys. That Indians drink a lot of blended whiskeys. Nirvana is basically for those who are in transition from blended whiskey to single malts. In India, people drink a lot of blended whiskeys. Indian palate is more sweeter and elegant. So people don't like high strength whiskeys. They like light-bodied, smoother whiskeys. So this is in a way to convert people who drink blended whiskeys, like, you know, from Johnny Walker to blended, Ballantines, 100 Pipers. So this whiskey is basically for those who are in transition. On the nose, it is very, very elegant, a lot of citrus notes. It has got tropical fruity notes like green apple, banana, pineapple. It has got lemon.
Definitely, there's quite a lot going on here. As I say,
Yeah.
I remember when your whiskeys first came over to the UK. I've been tasting them ever since they arrived, and beforehand. I remember having some previews of them before they turned up, and that thing I always found in your whiskeys was that sort of that slight that elegance and that grain note coming through. But this is definitely, as you say, picks up more of that tropical fruit, become a lot more delicate and elegant than the others.
Correct.
Yeah, definitely some citrus and vanilla. Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can understand on the nose, though it is still filtered, still it is creamy on the nose. It is oily on the nose. You know, this is what the Indian grain gives. Indian grain contains high amount of protein. This makes whiskey more creamier and oilier.
So you said about how it's 6-row barley rather than 2-row barley.
Mm-hmm.
So is that just like there's a lot more grains on each stem, or is it bigger? Is it smaller? Or
okay, from the bird's view, if you see, you have 6 shoots coming out. If you compare this with the 2-row, if you see from the bird's view, you know, you have only 2 shoots coming up.
And
so it is not that India does not grow 2-row grain. In India, the quality of 6 grain is much better than the 2-row grain.
But,
and yeah, go ahead.
So from what I know, the 2-row barley is a much more sort of like a modern style of barley. The 6-row is an older sort of variety, I think.
Whiskey is relatively new to India. I mean, the proper whiskey I'm talking about. So most of the grain previously they were used for the brewing. You know, in India we make a lot of beer. So most of the brewers they use 6-row grain. So the cultivation of 6-row is much higher, much larger than the 2-row. And the Indian climatic condition is more conducive to grow 6-row grain. This is one of the reasons 6-row grain is, the quality of 6-row grain is much higher than the 2-row.
But it definitely gives something quite different to the whiskey. You know, that you say there's that oiliness on the nose. Which is a strange thing to say, because smelling oiliness is a bit of a weird thing to say. But it definitely has a weight to it. But you say this is still an elegant whiskey, and when you nose it, there is an elegance to it.
You can find the creaminess, you know.
Yeah, I do like the fruit in there as well. There's a little edge. I don't know. I can't quite work out what it is. It's almost something floral and fruity in there as well, which is really nice. Anyway, onto the palate.
Mm-hmm. Palate, again, delivery is sweet. It is creamy. You have, it has got slight metallic taste to it, slightly metallic, and you have orange zest.
Yeah, quite a lot going on. So what you say, that creaminess is there. That orange, definitely orange is in there. A little bit of spice.
Zest. Yeah, a little bit of spice. And you have, again, it is slightly salivating.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a juicy whiskey, if you see what I mean. You know, it definitely inspires another sip. So, but it's quite, like I say, it's quite a lot going on. There's, you talked about apples on the nose, and that's come through in the palate. I think almost like
palate as well.
Apple pies and sort of like baked apples a little bit. Really, really sort of nice fruit in there. So I remember from the rest of the range, I haven't tried Nirvana until recently, and the rest of the range has a slightly weightier character I normally find, but this one has got that elegance, and that fruit is really coming through.
Yeah.
So how long? When did Nirvana come out? Is it quite a recent release?
Nirvana was launched in 2017, end of 2017, or you can say early 2018. Actually, this was mainly bottled for French market. Then we decided to launch in other markets as well. You see, actually in Nirvana, you can see the character of the stills, because we have stills that has got narrow gooseneck and high ascent linear, where you get the lighter whiskeys.
Yeah, for those who don't know necessarily the chemistry and physics of stills so much, when you have a still, you have your line arm, which is you have the neck, then you have the arm. And if the arm goes up, then it's a lot harder for the vapor to work its way into the condensers. If it goes down, as soon as it gets over the top, it runs through. So if it's a upward ascending, it creates a much lighter style of spirit than it does if it's downward. So yeah, so if your stills are like that, then you definitely can produce a lighter style, which starting from your heavier style of wash from your barley, it's a nice interesting combination, giving more flavor and then pulling off the lighter components of those, which is a nice sort of combination of different things to get this style.
Yeah, and also I want to talk about the fermentation here, because in during the fermentation I try to generate more esters. Ester produces more fruitier notes. This is the style we wanted to create. So the fermentation happens to around 60 hours, and once the fermentation is complete, the wash is kept for rest for a couple of more hours to gain the complexity, wherein a different bacteria takes over and makes the wash more mellower, more buttery in character, more complex.
Sorry, how long is your fermentation in total?
The primary fermentation, that is alcoholic fermentation, happens around 60 hours. Mm-hmm. So for another 15 hours, the wash is kept as it is to gain more complexity. Only after 75th hour, the wash is taken for distillation.
Excellent, because it's one of those things that happens more and more in whiskies around the world, is that the fermentation is getting shorter, but longer fermentations introduce these extra flavors. If you go too long, you can go a little bit too weird. But we'll talk about the climate a little bit more, I think, later on, but I'm suspecting there's lots of weird things about being hot in there as well.
Correct.
Yeah, so shall we move on to the next whiskey? So, Nirvana, we started with our beginning whiskey of the evening. Shall we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
So,
next expression is Brilliance.
There we go. If you want to wave your bottom of the camera there, Michael, let everybody see it.
Yeah, it's the one. This is Brilliance.
Excellent. So if you have some whiskey, please pour it now. So Brilliance was one of the first whiskies you guys released in the UK, wasn't it?
Yes, Brilliance is one of the flagships, bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered. The difference between Nirvana and Brilliance is, again, Nirvana is 4 years, the Brilliance is in between 5 to 6 years. Brilliance is bottled at 46%, that means Brilliance is non-chill filtered. In order to keep all the flavors intact, the Brilliance is not chill filtered. Again, matured in ex-bourbon cask. This is, the mix of first and second fills. You have the, on the nose, again, it's a lot of honey, loads of honey, actually. You have vanilla, you have pineapple, bananas. Again, you have hazelnut.
Sorry, my video's just died, but I am still here, don't worry. Mike, we had just a quick question popped up from Facebook. You said that this one isn't chill filtered because it's 46, and the Nirvana is the only one that is chill filtered at 40%. Yeah. Why is it that you need to chill filter things if they're below 46%?
Okay, especially when it comes to Indian grain, which contains a higher amount of protein, what happens is when, in a way, 46 is a magical number. So once the alcohol drops down below 46, all these fatty acids tend to get polymerized and make whiskey hazy initially, and over a period of time, you can see all the fat sedimenting. This is natural, but it is not appealing. So the only way you can avoid this is by removing the excess fat that is present in the whiskey. So what you have to do is you have to reduce the alcohol for 40% or 42%, allow all the fat to polymerize. Then you chill the whiskey so that all the fats get solidified. Then you start filtering it. You trap the fat, take out the clear liquid, so it becomes clear. However, you have to remember that by doing this, you tend to remove a lot of flavors from the whiskey, and whiskey becomes more inferior. On the palate, becomes leaner, thinner.
But it's one of those things also that a lot of companies do it, and everybody's used to the chill filtered version. I've tasted some occasional unchill filtered things where the chill filtered version, they work to that understanding, because as you say, things go hazy and people don't like hazy whiskey. So
hazy whiskeys, yeah. So this is kind of a cosmetic surgery, I would say.
Yeah, it's an ongoing debate in the wonderful world of whiskey about whether it's a good or a bad thing. Yeah. And my general opinion
definitely it is not bad. By doing the chill filtration, the character of whiskey changes. It becomes a different whiskey.
Yeah. And at the same time, it becomes a whiskey which, if you put ice in it, or if it's cold, or not something you have so much trouble with in Goa, things being cold. But, if you get a bottle off the shelf during the winter, it's one of those things we get in the warehouse. If it's really cold here in London, we'll get a bottle and somebody will have sent it back because it's arrived cold from the back of a van and it'll be really cloudy. And that's just a sign of quality, if anything, So, but yes, chill filtering, that's the reason why, because basically below 46, things can go a bit weird. So, but anyway, yes, so we should probably get back onto the whiskey we're drinking. So onto Brilliance. So tell us a bit more about Brilliance. What is its makeup and all that sort of thing? So you said it was a little bit older than the Nirvana.
Brilliance is slightly older than Nirvana. The youngest whiskey in Brilliance is 5. The oldest is 6 years. Whiskey is taken from first and second fill ex-bourbon casks. I've used whiskeys from different warehouses here. It has got the same hallmark that all the Paul John expression has. On the nose, loads of honey, vanilla. You have breakfast marmalade. You have hazelnut, pineapple, banana.
For me, that marmalade is a really big thing. It's a really nice, big orangey hit to it. But again, it's the grain is one of those things I always taste in these Paul John whiskies. You know, it's integrated in there, but it's a definite little bit of sort of grain in there. It's almost like a cross between porridge and buttered toast, sort of in there.
Yeah, this is because, you know, the Indian grain is smaller. This makes the ratio of husk is higher. You know, the husk Indian whiskies are more husky in character. You know, you have that graininess coming through on the nose.
Which is it's one of those things which a lot of people, we talk about fruity whiskies, we go for these really no grain in there, really big fruity whiskies. I love that style of whiskey, but getting that fruit in there and getting that nice grain character as well is a really nice balancing act that you guys have achieved. Yeah, getting a bit of both in there. So anyway,
I think this whiskey, since this is non-chill filtered, the few drops of water makes wonder. Again, on the palate, it's very, very creamy and sweet. Again, loads of tropical fruity notes. You have straight away, you have, you know, peach, apricot coming through. It is slightly nuttier. You have peanut and hazelnut.
I get a little bit of almost like pineapple cake, so like a sponge cake with pineapple on it. There's that little thing, but definitely that nuttiness is really in there, like a very creamy, nutty sort of character.
Exactly. And also, if you see closely, notice, you know, it's slightly mineral in character. Our whiskies are more saltier, you know, compared to other whiskies. You know, Goa has got wonderful tropical climate. The salt is in the air. The whiskey tend to absorb a lot of saltiness from the air.
Also, when it comes to, you talked about the fermentation earlier on, and about how you leave it longer to get these extra flavors. It's very, very hot in Goa. That's the one thing I know about Goa, is that you guys have a little, it's not as hot as some places in India, but, you know, so how do you guys have to control the temperatures while you're making the whiskey and the fermentation and all that sort of side of things?
Yes, the fermentation happens under controlled temperature. It happens, you know, we maintain around 25 to 27 degrees throughout the fermentation process. Only by the end of the fermentation process, we cut off the chilling, so it raises to 33, you know, because when it reaches 33, you know, it gets the complexity because different bacteria takes over. You know, this is how we make. I mean, this is our style. But otherwise, the warehouse, this is without climatic control. The temperature is always around 23 degrees. And we don't have much of a variation during the day and night. You know, at the most, the temperature drops around 2 degrees in the night. Again, back to normal during the day. So basically, the interaction happens throughout the year, you know, between the liquid and the wood. So this is how we tend to extract more color and a lot of barrel flavors. So we have two warehouses. You know, two warehouses are very, very high. You know, it's around 15 meters in height. So we, you know, barrels are kept at the 13 or that has been kept on the 13th tier or 14th tier, tend to extract more of the woodier characters. You know, it becomes more chocolatey in nature.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot more richness to it. You know, you talk about the previous one being elegant. This one's definitely got a bit more oomph. And I've just got a question from the Zoom room. Peter, if you want to wave at me, if you'd like to ask your question yourself, excellent. I shall unmute you and let you. There we go, Peter. You're now unmuted.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like this one, but I just wonder whether, with your different expressions, are you trying to emulate Scottish styles at all? Because I just wondered whether this is your take on a Speyside. But
okay, Peter, as you know, we have extreme climatic condition here in Goa. So I had to work towards the, you know, according to the environment. You know, for example, you know, it is not that, no, if I try to make something like, you know, Speyside or lowland whiskies, you know, it would end up, you know, better inside the cask. It is not that. So I had to really work according to the environment conditions, from the construction of the pot still to the mashing of the grain, the way in which the fermentation happens, the length and the temperature of the fermentation, when which we do the distillation. We do very slow distillation, because if you do the distillation at high pressure, your whiskey tend to become more heavier. So we had to carefully decide on the type of cask that we had to use. This is one of the reasons we started using ex-bourbon casks, because these are ones already used for bourbon whiskey maturation. So most of the harsher wood compounds or flavor compounds are extracted by bourbon whiskeys. So otherwise, we cannot mature whiskey for many years. We have been maturing our whiskeys for almost 10 years now. By end of 10 or 12 years, whiskey tend to get more woodier. We don't know after 12 years, maybe whiskey becomes too woodier, which makes undrinkable. We don't know. We have crossed 10 years now, so we never know what is there for us tomorrow. So we had to work according to the environment. We never wanted to, copy or make something similar to the one they are making in Scotland already.
Does that answer your question, Peter?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
brilliant. Thank you. Sorry, I've muted myself there for a moment. Do apologise. So another comment popped in from the Zoom room talking about the hazelnut character in there. It was very reminiscent of Jura 16. If anybody else has tried the Jura 16, it's definitely got a similar sort of like fruity, nutty sort of style to it. Again, it's one of those things, Michael. Peter asked, "Is this a Speyside?" It's also popping out a little bit like a Jura. Your whiskey does seem to sort of like span a lot of different styles within the world of whiskey. So
I think if you compare, it has got the character of the Speyside character from Speyside and the elegancy from the lowland, I guess.
Nice, sort of bringing in a little bit of lots of different types of thing. Just one of the great things about working in working from scratch. When you started distilling, you just were able to work with the environment, but choose the styles of whiskey that you want to do. On which note, shall we move on to the next one? We're going to go for the classic select cask next.
Yeah.
There we go. If you want to hold up that one. There we go. So on to the classic select. This is the unpeated version, because we do have a peated one in the tasting later on as well, but this is the unpeated one to start with. So.
Okay. Again, this is above Brilliance. Again, bottled at 55%, non-chill filtered. This is not a cask strength whiskey. This is diluted to 55, slightly diluted to 55, matured and ex-bourbon cask, drawn from the underground cellar. The whiskey is from the first fill barrels.
And so we have the Nirvana starts off being, as you say, that very light and delicate and elegant style to bring in the blend drinkers. We have the Brilliance, which adds a bit of weight and complexity and is more towards the sort of the single malt drinkers who are used to that style. So what's the classic cask? What's the sort of style you're aiming for?
Classic is, the first two whiskies were very much easy drinkable ones. The classic is more complex than the other two. The age is in between 7 to 8 years. The youngest whiskey in this is 7, the oldest is 8 years, drawn from the first fill cask underground cellar. The underground cellar gives us more elegant whiskeys. It extracts elegant barrel flavors from the ex-bourbon casks. If you see, again, it's high on citrus. It has got coconut, almond, hazelnut, Manuka honey.
So yeah, it's got lots and lots going on there on the nose.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a sort of floral note, and there's a little bit of wood polish. There's it's lots of.
Again, it has got a lot of the sweetness on the nose. We get from the barley sugars.
Definitely that barley sugar note. It's almost like almost into sort of toffee apples, you know, so apples covered in crunchy toffee, that sort of sweet and sour combination in there.
Exactly.
But I also get like a little bit of almost like pine resin, like a little bit of resinous tree in there as well. Some sort of nice, not going too far into sort of like big woodiness, but just
that you get from, a hint of sweet oak, actually.
Yeah, quite a lot going on. And again, it's quite different to the Brilliance as well. It's definitely exploring another side of that spirit. Yeah. On the palate, it's a lot richer in texture than the Brilliance as well.
Exactly, it's more creamier than Brilliant. You know, again, sweet, lot of the fruitiness. Again, you have apricot and peach, banana, pineapple.
So you just got a comment in from the room from Chris. Hello, Chris, who's saying he reminds me of some of the single casks he's tried, because I know you release single casks every now and again. But yeah, that as soon as you get higher strength whiskies from the distillery, you get that intensity of flavor, and that really shows in here. That extra oomph of a kick of alcohol, also just a kick of flavor as well.
Actually, you know, this is bottled at 55, but on the palate, it doesn't seem like 55. It's pretty smooth. It is spicy.
So you don't get
and
the
also
alcohol
it has
so
got
much, but
the salted chocolate. Sometimes you get salted chocolate on the palate.
So you don't get the hit of alcohol, but you do just get that intensity of flavor that you get from a higher strength whiskey. I've added a bit of water to it as well, and it's definitely opening up a load more. You get big sort of explosion of sort of, especially that sort of appley fruit and stewed apples and things like that. Orchard fruit, and definitely some more floral notes. There's a lot. So if you have a bit of water to hand, I've got a pipette because I have no skill when it comes to pouring water in a delicate fashion. It just goes all over the place. But a few drops of water is all you need in it as well. You know, you don't want to lose too much of that intensity, but it opens it up, and especially for me, sort of like sort of. About talk about lovely British sweets, which you may not know. You know, Love Heart sweets are little sort of crunchy, sort of chalky candies. Those sort of floral notes you get from those running through this as well. Yeah, that's great. So, when it comes to the classic select cask, so this is sort of like is this a separate range to the core range, or is this all part of your core range of whiskies?
This is part of a core range. You know, in core range we have. Nirvana, Brilliance, Edited, Bold, and 2 select casks. These are the core ranges. Core ranges are available across all the markets.
Excellent. So you also, as Chris said, you do a few single casks from time to time. Is the style when is this classic select cask? You know, I know it's a vatting of more than one cask. Sorry,
Yes.
it's a vatting of one cask, but is it much more sort of focused towards that punchy style you find in some of your single casks, or is it looking for a very specific style within what you do? Is it going for one thing, or is it just?
Okay, for single cask, I don't go by the age. You know, here whiskey evolves inside the cask every day. You know, and it matures very rapidly. I bottle single cask soon after the whiskey hits its peak. It can be after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, doesn't matter. So once the whiskey reaches its peak, I use it for single cask. But when it comes to select cask, it's always in between 7 to 8 years. And I do not vat more than 100 casks every year. It's limited to 100 casks.
Excellent. I've got another little question popped up from Lutz in the room. What percentage of Paul John whiskey, the single malt here, rather than the other stuff that John Distilleries puts out, Paul John whiskey do you sell at home rather than to the international market?
When we started in 2012, it was mainly for the export markets. Then gradually we started selling in different Indian markets. Today, if you see, 60% is sold in international markets and 40% in Indian markets. Yeah, because Indian market is picking up. So hopefully another 5 years time, it should be the opposite. We should be selling more in the Indian markets than the export markets.
That's a really big increase, because I remember when you started, when there were only a few companies exporting single malt, well, two of you exporting single malt from India. You didn't have very many home sales at all. But so is the Indian market tending more towards single malts, and is the local Indian whiskey market growing as well for Indian single malts?
Yeah, I mean, India is one of the emerging economy, that. So the buying capacity has increased. So people started buying, premium whiskeys. They don't mind trying out different type of whiskeys. Earlier, they used to drink, only the blended whiskeys. Now people are not afraid of trying out, different expensive whiskeys.
Excellent. It's really great to see more people drinking whiskey. And
whiskeys.
I've tried some Indian blended whiskies, and some of them are all right, some of them are not so great. But it's really good to see now that your single malts, available at home as well. Because I know there's always been lots of fun with local legislation when it comes to selling alcohol in India as well.
I think if you see slowly the economy segment is shrinking and the premium segment is expanding. So that's a good sign. Excellent.
Hopefully it just means we'll see lots more whiskey coming out of India, and you guys making lots more interesting things, which is always good. So, anyway, so should we move on to something a little bit different?
Yeah. So these were the three unpeated whiskeys. The next three whiskeys are peated ones. The first of the first expression is edited, is slightly peated.
So for those of us who are tasting along, this is the Paul John edited, which again, this bottle is tiny, but Michael's got a proper bottle.
Yeah.
There we go. There we can show off what a shiny bottle looks like. And so this is bottled at 46% as well.
This is bottled at 46% again. Yes.
Excellent. So you said it was slightly peated. So what do you mean by that?
Okay. It's a blend of two different expressions, that is peated and unpeated. I've used 25% of peated whiskey and 75% of unpeated whiskey for this batch.
Excellent. So just having a quick nose of it, it's not a smoky whiskey in the same way as many smoky whiskeys are. It's definitely something a little bit different.
I mean, again, the very reason we did this is, not many people like peated whiskeys, but they would like to try. This is kind of an entry-level peated whiskey.
So you add a little bit of peat, bring people in, and then slowly up the peating levels, and they're not watching. That's the best way of getting them in.
Exactly. So again, this is bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered. The age is in between 5 to 6 years. Measured in ex-bourbon barrels. Again, whiskey is drawn from two different warehouses. Peat, it has got peat from Islay as well as Highland. It's a mix of Islay and Highland peat.
So do you import the peat and then malt the barley locally, or do you import the barley?
Okay. Ours is 100% Indian whiskey. So everything is done here. We don't consider peat as an ingredient. It's just for the flavoring purpose. We import peat and do the malting here.
Brilliant. Because it's one of those ones where I know that malting with peat is a difficult skill to pick up. And I know that people around the world often import peated barley rather than do it themselves. So it's great that you guys are doing it locally. So
again, on the nose, it is, again, a lot of honey. It is the most nuttiest whiskey that we have here in the lineup. A lot of hazelnut, peanut. You have coffee mocha, dark chocolate. On the nose, it is slightly peated. It's very, very subtle.
So a little bit of that sort of like a tarry peat in there as well. It's not like a big on smoke. I find a little bit of maybe like wood smoke, but then there's a little bit of tarriness in there as well, which is really really nice.
Yeah. If you go by the ppm, it's less than 8 ppm. Actually, it's not heavily peated whiskey.
Definitely, it comes in smelling a lot more smoke than that. 8 ppm is about the same level as I think Ben Romick, and this has got it's a very different style of smokiness to that. They do a very old-fashioned style whiskey, and this almost feels like that old-fashioned smokiness.
Because when it comes to Scotch, the peatiness is more sharper. By the time we get the peat in here, it's almost 3 months, and most of the intense phenols are lost. In a way, it works for us. We can make different whiskeys.
So it complements your style as well. That softer smokiness to it. I was saying, get that wood smoke, and I can still get that grain character in the whiskey, but it's come across now like it is a smoky grain. It's lovely.
Exactly. So
just having a quick taste.
Palate, again, as usual, very creamy and sweet, very, very nutty. Again, you have orange zest, tropical fruity notes again. You have coffee mocha, dark chocolate. Very creamy, very nutty.
Creamy and chocolatey, definitely, yeah. And you say that nutty note comes through again. And for me, that's one of those things you get from a very grain-forward whiskey, that nuttiness and that graininess. And it's that combination between, as you say, the husky bits that you get from your barley. From the barley, yeah. But the peat on the nose, I get the peat a lot more. I get that tarry note on the palate. It's just a little bit of tar, a little bit of peat smoke at the back, and a little bit of wood smoke. But it's very, very integrated and very, very gentle.
Integrate.
That's really great. So, so your peated whiskey itself. So you import the peat, and then from Islay and the Highland, do you mix the peat together before you dry the barley, or do you keep them separate? Or
okay, entire process is done separately. From the peating of barley to the distillation, maturation, everything happens separately. Everything is vatted and mixed or blended during the bottling process. So cool. When it comes to edited, you would find slight variations from batch to batch, because sometimes I have to use more Islay peat than less of Highland. The next batch, maybe you have more of a Highland peat and less of Islay peat.
But it gives you lots of different components to work with, and this is one of the things I'm fascinated by distilleries because in India there's not very much trading between distilleries. I'm assuming you make your whiskey, and if you make a blend of different things, it's all yours. So correct. Even within the distillery, even with just a couple of tiny tweaks to the process, you already create different things to be able to combine together to make interesting and complex sort of vattings of and releases.
Exactly, because if you see, we have 20,000 casks. We have 20,000 different whiskeys. Each and every cask is entirely different. You would not find this in Scotland, because there the climate is cooler. The whiskey matures slowly. You have a lot of time. Here, whiskey matures whiskey changes every day.
And while that might be slightly more annoying, makes things slightly more difficult, at the same time, it does produce, such a different range of whiskies. So just across these four, which are just, apart from this one, which has got a bit of peat in it, those first three, that's just different warehouses and different ages, and that's created a big range. And you drop in a couple of extra components that you've distilled as well with peat, and all of a sudden you've got something that's very, very different indeed.
Different whiskey, yeah.
Oh dear. Anyway, Gareth, is there anybody, any questions out there at the moment? Sorry, my colleague Gareth is keeping an eye on Facebook and other such things. Yeah, see if anybody has any questions at the moment. But if you do have questions, if you're watching live on Facebook, please do post them in the comments. We'll try and get onto them if we can. If not, we'll pop on later on and answer the questions then, if we can. If not, we can grab Michael and Shilton and try and find out what they reckon. So any questions at the moment, Gareth? Oh, he's having to think about it. So shall we move on to another whiskey?
Yeah, the next one is the Bold. So this Bold is completely peated. This is the last of the flagship. The first one was Brilliance. The second one was edited. This is the last one called Bold. bottled at 46%, non-chill filtered, matured in ex-bourbon cask. The age is in between 5 to 6 years again. In this, you have 100% Islay peat.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Because the range, like, you start off with just your unpeated bourbon and you end with your just peated bourbon. You know, edited sits in the middle with a perfect name to be the one which is the combination of the two. So this is all Islay peat. Wow.
Islay peat, yeah. Again, on the nose, it's very yeasty. You know, you have a lot of breadcrumbs. Slightly peaty on the nose again. You have a lot of honey, you have citrus, you have, again, hazelnut, peanut, and almonds. You have coconut as well.
It's definitely, you know, a different style of peat to the edited. You're talking about there being Islay peat, and much as you've told me now, so I can probably, you know, it's just suggesting things to me. But if you hadn't told me, I think I'd be able to pick it up because it definitely has that more medicinal style and that sort of creosote, tarry edge to it.
More sharp, yeah, more sharper.
Yeah, definitely. But still very different. You know, as you say, it still has those nutty notes. It has those sort of fruity notes, has the honey, has all the things you expect from Paul John, but with this extra layer of this Islay style smokiness.
Islay style, yeah.
So how do you find the Islay peat and the Highland peat affect your whiskey differently? How, because you say it's a very different peat to the one they use fresh in Scotland. Is there a difference between the two different types?
I mean, you know, for me, Islay peat is more sharper, has got more medicinal character. Highland peat is more mellower, you know, more of a, you know, you have these, you know, the saltiness, and, you know, you have those sea breeze kind of a flavor. It's more mellower, definitely.
I gotta say, for the Islay style, you know, you guys are based by the sea. You know, you're near the waves as it is, and you're bringing in Islay peat, which has that classically maritime character. So it's definitely bringing out more maritime flavors from your whiskey as well.
Exactly. But again, I mean, honestly speaking, once it is distilled, it's hard to make out. You know, this is one of the reasons I really cherry pick the cask for the bowl, you know, to bring that extra bite, extra sharpness.
Sorry, on the palate, it suddenly took me by surprise. It's got a lot more coming out, a lot more than I was expecting in there as well. It's
exactly.
Just,
on the nose, it was subtle, you know. On the palate, it is big.
Yeah, definitely. It's called bold, and there's a reason why. You know, it's got the right name. Which actually that comes into a question that we have on Facebook from Start Burness, which says, "Where did the naming of your different expressions come from?"
Actually, for example, you know. Nirvana, of course, I mean, if you see the other expressions, you know, it doesn't seem like Indian, you know, Brilliance, edited, bold. So we wanted to have something, you know, something Indianness in the expression. So we named it Nirvana. But Brilliance, edited, and bold. Edited, you know that because it's a mix of two different expressions. Bold because, you know, this was the very first bold whiskey we produced, the peated whiskey. It's big whiskey. The Brilliance because it is it has got more youthness. It's more crispier. It has got the vibrancy. You know, you have to remember India is massively diverse nation. You know, we have different religion, different language, different colors, different cuisines. Everything is different. So similar kind of vibrancy we wanted to have inside the bottle. So we have multiple characters. So this is one of the first expression we produced. That's why it is Brilliance.
Yeah, and I remember when it launched, and I remember hearing the names for the first time, having tried a few samples of things when they're being developed. And
exactly,
and it was Brilliance and Edited were the first two that popped up, and both me and my colleague who tried them going, Yeah, that fits. That's it. They're the good names. So I've got another couple of questions for you. So first one, what strength do you fill your casks at?
Okay, from the
that's
Indian grain.
That's from Roten Brum on Facebook.
Yeah, from the Indian grain, we get approximately 50% yield. That is, so end of the distillation, the alcohol strength is around 63 ABV. So we fill the cask at 63% ABV.
Also, you don't need to dilute it from the still.
No.
Wow, excellent. Well, I didn't know that. I very much like the idea of distilling and then filling directly from the still. And often that goes too high, and you get very high strength whiskies, and you get strange extractions.
Right. This is
63
see,
is very good.
Paul John is more bolder because we don't dilute when we fill the cask. Secondly, because of the high humidity, we lose more alcohol than water. As you mature, your ABV drops down. For example, after 5 or 6 years, it drops down to 57%. So you need to add very less water to bring the alcohol down. At the end of the day, you will be diluting very, very less. If the alcohol goes up, the amount of water goes in is much higher. So at the same time, you would be diluting more flavors.
Exactly. Without that dilution, it gives you a load more punch. So, actually, so that comes into a question that was asked by Lutz on the Zoom room. What's your average angel share? How much do you lose to evaporation in your warehouses?
In terms of volume, we lose close to 8% every year. But initial few years it is high, but then after 5 years it drops down. It reduces. So in an average, I would say we lose 5%.
So more than somewhere like Scotland, but less than other parts of India and Taiwan and other places.
Exactly.
So this is one of the things that seems to be about your whiskey, where you're located and the way that you make things. You seem to have found a balance of the environment and process, and which makes it that you sort of sit in between lots of other different places. It gives you a chance to play around.
I agree. Yes.
And it gives you a chance to create something which is quite unique in character. So back onto the bowl. So what is the what level of peat do you use in your barley? What sort of ppm are we talking about?
See, the ppm level, the level in the grain is around 40 ppm.
Mm-hmm.
So soon after distillation, it drops down to 35. So from the Isla peat, we get slightly higher ppms, maybe 3 or 4 ppm higher, not more than that. So in an average, if you see our peated whiskeys is around 35 ppm.
That's quite high, but at the same time, it doesn't come across in that really big over the top smoke kind of way you find in a lot of Isla whiskies, where you get something which is like 35, 45.
Yeah, Billy. I mean, for example, when you say 5 to 6 years, you have to remember, this equates to 25-year-old Scotch whiskey. If you know the 25-year-old Scotch whiskey, you have more of a barrel character. It becomes more rounder. You have more of a fruitiness. The oakiness comes in. So what happens is, as whiskey matures here, once it crosses 5 years, the barrel character will mask the peatiness. So when you nose the whiskey, you don't get the peatiness. You get the other flavors, So only when you taste whiskey on the palate, you find the peatiness.
But even then, it's one of those, it's not quite so harsh. And I'm wondering, because I know over time in other places in Scotland, in cooler climates, smoke will dissipate over time. So you'll start off with a really fiercely smoky spirit. Mm-hmm. And after 10, 15 years, it will start losing some of that and into really old sort of smoky whiskies where that smoke has just become very delicate and faint. Do you find the smoke dies down quite quickly in your whiskey because of the different climate?
Yes, I mean, you know, we process the peated whiskies during the winter. You know, otherwise we tend to lose the phenol level in the grain because you know it becomes more drier. You know, so we normally produce peated whiskey during the winter that starts from October to February in order to retain. You know, otherwise even the peat also gets more drier and it tend to lose the flavors. So normally we do it during the winter. So if we do it during the summer, definitely the ppm level reduces because the peat itself will lose the moisture and it becomes drier, and you know it will not be good.
I just realized we're getting very sorry.
Again, after the distillation, actually, you know, the ppm level slightly increases because you know because of the concentration. You know, we lose more you know, in a way the flavor becomes more concentrated inside the cask.
Yeah, I just realised we're getting quite geeky about peat and smoke and things, and I just realised we have a question from Facebook from someone saying, "How do you get the peat flavour into the whiskey?" Thank you very much to Craig for answering it on our Facebook feed. Lisa asked it, Lisa Richardson. And so, just very quickly, peat, the flavour gets in by you burn it to dry the barley, and the flavour for the smoke just like sticks to the barley, and then when you make the whiskey with it, that smoky flavour carries through the process. So we get very obsessed with peat, and I say Michael and I are both quite geeky about this sort of thing, and so yeah, sorry if we got a little bit geeky about peat for a little bit there. But should we drink some more whiskey to try and get beyond that? So do you want to try the last one?
Yeah, the last one is again select cask peated, bottled at 55% again, ages in between 7 to 8 years.
So the bold, knocking over now. The bold was 100% Islay barley.
Islay barley.
So what do we have here?
Yeah, you have the mix of Highland and Islay peat in this, bottled at 55, matured in ex-bourbon cask. Actually, this whiskey is drawn from the not from the underground cellar, from the other two warehouses, and from the first fill casks. On the nose, again, it's a lot of dark chocolate, coffee mocha. You have dry leaves, tobacco, smoked bacon.
The thing that this is a bit of a strange thing. Rather than reminding me more of the bold, this reminds me a lot more of the other select cask. It has that similar character, but with this extra smoky element.
Yeah, it's more complex than bold.
Yeah, it has that again, that slight hint of wood polish I got on the select cask.
Classic.
It has similar fruits as well. But it's
this
very
is,
much a select cask.
Yeah, this is from the oak. You know, as whiskey becomes older, it tend to extract more oakiness from the cask. On the palate, again, sweet and creamy, dark chocolate, coffee mocha. You have again a lot of hazelnut. The peat is round here. It's not sharp like bold. It's more rounder. It's more chocolatey. It's more saltier.
It's definitely one of my favourite chocolates to pair with whiskies and tastings. And to give it away, this is the way to cheat when you do chocolate and whiskey pairing. Is find a chocolate with salt in it. A salted dark chocolate just pairs perfectly with whiskey, and this whiskey's got that classic salted dark chocolate character to it.
And most of the time, this whiskey is paired with cigar as well. So,
yeah, I can see that. It's got some tobacco notes in there, but and this is the other thing. You're talking about these darker flavors, the mocha, the dark chocolate, but there's a freshness to it as well. It's not too heavy. There's a nice sort of zingy, sort of like zesty character to it as well. Yeah. So this is a mixture of Highland peat and Isla peat.
Isla peat.
So, and how old do you say it was again?
The youngest is 7, and the oldest is 8 years.
It's really strange just quite how different these two are after just that extra little bit of age in the cask. The oak, I know you have a very different maturation profile in Goa than to other countries, other parts of the world, but it's just in that year or so, along with the cask you've selected, it's just up to that sweetness and that oakiness and brought out this very this very different character of your whiskey, which is really impressive. So I'm quite a fan of it. I've always been a fan of this one, so I was expecting to get to this point and be quite impressed. So we have another quick question from Rotem on Facebook. He was wondering, have you tried aging for longer using refill casks and second refill casks?
Okay. Initially, when we started with ex-bourbon casks. Then slowly we started trying out different alternative casks. Today we have, you can say we have version of casks. We have casks of different Spanish wines, that is Oloroso and PX. We also have a couple of Portuguese casks like Vintage Port, Tawny Port, and Madeira. So we started trying out different casks, but 95% of the inventory is ex-bourbon casks.
Are they all, do you do like refills and second refills and things as well, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you see, I don't keep the whiskey long in first fill cask because it tend to get more woodier. The maximum I would think it is 10 years. There are some casks which are second fills. I will keep these casks for many years, maybe 15 years, because we are also on the learning curve. Actually, we just crossed 10 years, so we are also doing some observations. Hopefully, we should cross 15 years with the second fill casks.
I'm looking forward to that. So just from the
when
development so far.
When I say 15 years, it's close to 50 years in Scotland. I mean, I'm not comparing the age. The amount of extraction that you get from the cask in these 15 years is equivalent to 50 years of extraction that you get in Scotland. I'm not directly comparing the age here.
And that's one of the things which I always seem to talk quite a lot about, is the fact that you can't age any faster than 1 year per year, but you can still pull lots of extra flavour out of the wood.
True.
Another question. We have Noel, who's in the Zoom room, who asks, he's visiting India next year, hopefully, and he's wondering, is it possible to visit the distillery?
We have opened a visitor center now. We run tours throughout the year. They can drop in anytime. We are open from morning 10 to evening 4 o'clock. They'll be taken around, they can even taste whiskies directly from the casks.
Because that was the next part of the question. Can they come and visit and try some more whiskey? The answer is yes.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
Excellent. Another question from Jan Rose on Facebook. Have you thought about doing a younger version of your smokier whiskey? So she was saying, is there like a bold junior, like a younger version, which might be even punchier than the bold is?
Okay, I mean, in the future, you would see something similar to Nirvana, which is still filtered, bottled at 40%. So definitely, yes. I mean, Nirvana, as of now, it is unpeated. We'll be releasing chill filtered version of, peated whiskey of chill filtered peated whiskey. But it may not be Nirvana, but it will be something that it will be called different.
Excellent. So sort of like a bold junior, but a companion to Nirvana. So, excellent.
Right.
Another question from Facebook. I'm not entirely certain quite how serious this one is, but because you're saying about how the whiskey changes every single day in India, do you have a large team of people who run around tasting all the casks just to make sure they're all right?
We have fairly big team. We have a couple of guys working in the cellar, but most of the tasting is done by me. Me and my team, we taste close to 30 casks every day, and these casks are revisited every 6 months. So we have to keep tasting the same cask every 6 months. When it comes to Scotland, you have 12 long years, to observe and taste whiskies. But we we don't have much time. Whiskey changes too fast.
Yeah, these ones where, in Scotland you can leave it for a little bit, and generally it's going to be fine. But move over to India, and you've got to be a little bit faster. So yeah, it must be a horrible job though, Mike. Having to try all those whiskies every day. That's you do these things so we don't have to. Thank you very much for your sacrifice.
It's my job.
Oh dear. Oh boy. So that's all the questions we've got. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you want to say about your whiskey, Shilton? Is there anything you want to pipe in and say about anything? You got any questions?
If you have any specific questions, I would be happy to answer these.
I think we've grabbed all the questions from everybody else, and you've answered everything I want to know. Especially now that I know you might have a peated version of Nirvana coming out, which is the question I was going to ask at the end, because very intrigued by that. But
because again, I would like to tell that every region, every whiskey will have its own regional characteristics. So we are in a tropical climate where the weather is hot and humid. We make different whiskey. We cannot compare our whiskey with any other whiskey made anywhere in the world. So again, we are on the learning curve because we have just crossed 10 years. We don't know what is there for us tomorrow. When it comes to Scotland, you have hundreds of years of history, and exactly once the whiskey is filled after 25 years, what are you going to get? But we have not reached that stage. We don't have the tradition. So hopefully, we would be getting to that stage soon.
Well, just one final cheeky question from the Zoom room, from Peter from earlier on. What's your favourite Scotch whiskey?
Wow, I have a lot of. I'm a big fan of Scotch whiskies. My all-time favorite, I would say, Old Pulteney 17.
The dearly departed Old Pulteney 17. Yeah, I'd say just from tasting your whiskies, that slightly salty edge to it, I can see where there might be some inspiration there.
Yeah, and again, when I created, say, edited, because I was a big fan of Highland Park. The 80s, 70s and 80s Highland Park. I just loved it. Maybe that was my inspiration to create edited.
Well, it just shows you have a good and expensive taste in whiskey, and you've helped us, pour that into this range as well to try and make sure that we can get some interesting whiskies as well. Oh, dear. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for leading us through the range.
It was a pleasure, Billy.
Excellent. So anyway, I'm going to wrap things up now because we've reached the end of our hour. But thank you very much for everybody watching along on Facebook. Thank you very much for everybody in the Zoom room. Sorry, camera, screen, different people, different places. We are continuing doing our virtual tastings. We will be launching our lineup for June very soon now. It will be early next week. I think we'll be announcing it all on Tuesday after we finish the bank holiday. But we've got a lineup for the whole of June. We're already looking into July just in case, but we're going to keep on doing these for as long as we need to. Our whiskey show is going to have some virtual bits to it, as well as hopefully a whiskey show in real life. We'll be keeping you updated about that as we go down the line. Keep an eye on our Facebook page, Twitter, our blog, all the different things. But this time next week, we'll be doing another tasting with the guys from Suntory. Unfortunately, all the tasting packs are sold out. So make sure you keep an eye on our website early next week so that if you do want to join in another tasting, you can jump on the packs before they all sell out because they're selling really quick at the moment. So, but anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you have any more questions, pop them in the comments on Facebook and we'll jump onto them. And all I can say is cheers, Slanjavar. Thank you very much. And one final thank you to Michael. Thank you very much for joining us for tasting.
It was a pleasure seeing you again, Billy, after a long time.
Good to see you too, sir.
Yeah.
Right then. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Excellent, and that's the live stream finished. Thank you very much for everybody who's in the room for following along. I hope we answered all your questions. If you have any more questions, you have our email address. It's in your the email we sent you so you could actually join in today. Drop us a line and we will have a chat with Michael and find out anything you want to know, or just drop us a line on the Facebook post. We do have loads more tastings coming up. Gareth, who's hiding in the chat somewhere, or, oh no, Gareth, who's just disappeared off the chat, my colleague who organises all the tastings. We've got another 4 coming up, including some whiskey and chocolate. We've got some gin. We've got a round table with loads of gin producers. We've got me doing a tasting with some of my friends at Elixir Distillers for some really nice Porter-Skeg whiskey. We'll tell you more about that later. And another one that I can't remember at the moment, but look like, oh no, that's a secret one. I can't tell you about that, but that's going to be a really good one as well. But we're looking into doing all these tastings, and we're hopefully going to be doing lots more stuff online. But we have content appearing all week up on the website. If you need anything, let us know. But in the meantime, keep safe and all that sort of thing. And I'm going to start shutting down the Zoom room now. But if you have any more questions, anything, drop us a line. And thank you very much for coming along. So.